So first thing I want to do is welcome all of you. I think pretty much I've welcomed just about everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll probably have some more folks come in, and that'll be all right. And for some of you new folks, we have restrooms upstairs on this over. When you go up the stairs, they're just straight across. And then we have some snacks in the back, and we have some coffee back in the back also. So we're glad you're here. And to our folks on the internet, we're glad that you're with us. And I heard my phone buzz, so I needed to make sure I silenced it. And so if anybody else needs to silence their phone, that'd be great too. So we're going to talk about Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live is we talk about it as life recovery. And the reason why we do that is because life recovery means there's more messiness in life than just drugs and alcohol. There's all kinds of different stuff. And we could go through an endless list of obsessive compulsive behaviors and substances. We want to try to help with all that. We're not an expert. I'm not an expert on anything, okay? But we try to address it and also using our higher power, which we call God, that we have a faith-based meeting here. And by the way, you don't have to accept the faith-based part. If you're interested in recovery, we want to help you. But I think that if you hang around long enough, that maybe you'll see where the faith aspect of it will really help you and come to place. But we welcome everybody that's interested in recovery, whatever it is they're working on, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex addiction, pornography, overeating, anger, obsessive compulsive behaviors, gambling, violence, just whatever. So anyway, we're glad you're here, and for you out watching on video in video land, we're glad that you're watching. And I have people all the time, different places I go, say, I saw you on TV, or I saw you on video, or I saw you on YouTube, or I saw you on Facebook. And so, and most of the time, they say it's really good. In fact, I don't think I've had anyone say that was bad. But, well, yes, I retract that statement. So, yeah, I've had some in the past, but it's been a while. So anyway, I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad you guys are watching. So anyway, tonight we are in step 2. And step 2 is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. And that is so important, because I don't know that we really realize how insane we are when we're insane. What do you think about that? Because we are spinning, and we're trying to do everything we can. And neuroscience says that when we get overwhelmed, our amygdala takes over and shuts down the thinking aspects of our brain. And so we really lose the ability to be aware of what's going on, because we're in that survival coping mode. You follow what I'm saying, right? And so and another way, the terminology they use is, they call that being dysregulated or emotionally dysregulated, overwhelmed, pushed off center, upset, emotionally disturbed. All those type of things would be dysregulated. So what we want to do here is try to help you to come to this place, like step 2 says. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore. That means you've been there before. Can you remember that? Can you remember that you were there before? That is so important to be able to remember. Sometimes we have to fight to even remember the good stuff. Restore, going back to the step, restore us to sanity. And, that's kind of written in like in an absolute term. But the fact of it is, if we could just be a little more sane than we were, then that's better. Would you agree with that? And if we continue to have progress, not perfection, but if we have some progress, then we are getting better, bit by bit, piece by piece, inch by inch. It's all a cinch. Anybody ever heard that before? Yeah. So anyway, we are going to be. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight, and then also I'm going to be covering 8 ways to bounce back after a disappointment, and tying that in with persistent seeking. So, is that Miracle on the Steps?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I wasn't for sure with that hat. I've never seen that hat before. So, put this over here. All right. Really quickly, I want to address the bracelets. This is our Clean Time bracelets. It's got Saturday Night Live, One Step at a Time on it. We have different colored bracelets for different time marks. You can use the bracelet to help celebrate whatever it is that you're addressing. You don't have to tell us what it is you're addressing. That can be a private issue with you, or you can tell us. That's entirely up to you. It's not mandatory that we know, because we just want to celebrate your. Well, we just tie it in with what we're talking about. That you are persisting on your seeking and your growing. So, and if you have need of one of these, you stick your hand up, and we will. Willie over here will help us get those. And we have white bracelets for just for today, or at least 30 days. We have orange for 30 days. We have green for 60 days, maroon for 90 days, blue for 6 months. If you need one of those, looks like Miracle, are you going to do that? Is that what you're working on? Okay. If you want one of these, stick your hand up. Thank you, Miracle. Yellow, 9 months. Glow in the dark, 1 year. Gray is 18 months. Black, 2 years. Silver, 5 for 5 years, and gold for 10 years. Anybody? Okay. All right. Okay. And for you out there, we got right in the back. So, out in video land, if you're interested in getting a bracelet, either come to our live meeting and we get that to you, or make contact through either Saturday Night Live or the Central Christian Center, and we'll do our best to get that to you. Thanks, Miracle, for your help out there. We went from no activity to several activities, so that's good.
I'm sorry.
All right. We're going to talk. At this time, I usually talk about thoughts, questions, and quotes. And so I have some of all. So, a quote from Socrates. Anybody familiar with Socrates? Okay. All right. He said this. He said many things, but this is one of the things he said. He said, "I know that I am intelligent because I know that I don't know anything." I qualify. Christine Kane said this. She said, sometimes when you are in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you have actually been planted.
Say that one more time.
Okay. You want me to stretch it out or just say it normal?
Just say it.
Okay.
That one is good.
Okay. Sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted.
Amen.
most of life has to do with our perception, because how you perceive is what you see.
I've been planning more than one.
And some of it was warm and sloppy, right? Okay, let's see.
Always get face planted.
Dr. Wayne Dyer says this. He says, if you argue for your misery, you'll get it. What do you think about that? Epictetus. I've talked about Epictetus. And Epictetus said this. He's a Stoic philosopher. He says, there is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond your power or our will. I think that's a very significant one.
Can
Okay,
control go in there?
that would be outside your will.
Yeah.
So, I figured I'd at least get somebody to say, I want me to read that again.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying. I've heard this said that worry is a negative prayer. Have you ever heard that? Okay, so there is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond our power or our will.
sounds good on paper.
Do what?
How we going on paper?
Sounds good on paper? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Epictetus also says it's not things or circumstances that upset us, but our thoughts about them.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right. Epictetus here, I got several quotes from him. And Epictetus, which is very similar to what you just said, I think, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, which is very similar to what you said. I like this one, and these are tied to happiness or effectiveness. And this is another Epictetus, and I think this will be my last one. It says, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do.
I think the last part of that is the key to this whole thing.
Absolutely. Well, it's both parts. It's both parts, because you have to first become aware, and then you have to make a decision, and then you have to take action. And the last part is some of the hardest part, but it's probably one of the most important parts. So thank you, Bob. Robert.
I started saying, you call me Bob.
I'm sorry. I can call you Tom.
Well, I know you was talking to him when you said Tom.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so let's go into the 12 steps reading. And so, Heather, would you like to? I got a sheet right here. So, I think that will reach you.
Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. So the 12 steps. When we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. I know that nothing good lives in me. I want to do what is right, but I can't.
Slow it down just a little bit.
Okay. Step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Let us test and examine our ways. Let us turn back to the Lord. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of characters. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up in honor. Step 7, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. If we confess our sins to Him, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all wickedness. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Step 9, we made a direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. If you're presenting a sacrifice at the altar and someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person, then come and offer your sacrifice to God. Step 10, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. If you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Devote yourselves to prayer with an alert mind and a thankful heart. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path, and be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, Courtney. All right, you gotta be nice to Courtney here, because this is her first time, and so she asked me to ask real hard questions, but, so, anyway, we'll see what happens. How's that? Is that right there?
Okay. Persistent seeking. The Bible reading is in Job 14, 1-6. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. One thing that may make it hard to believe in God is that life seems unfair to us. We didn't ask to be born into a dysfunctional family. We didn't have any say over the abuses or the injustices that we have all suffered. We didn't choose our predisposition toward addiction, and yet we are held accountable for these things we cannot control on our own. This makes it hard to initially turn to God as the power to restore us to our sanity. He seems unreasonable in his demands. Job understood these feelings in the midst of his suffering. He said, "How frail is humanity, how short is life, how full of trouble. We blossom like a flower and then wither. Like a passing shadow, we quickly disappear. Must you keep an eye on such a frail creature and demand an accounting from me? Who can bring purity out of an impure person?" These are good questions, ones that most of us have asked in one form or another. Job persisted in his questioning because deep inside, he believed God to be good and fair. Even though his life wasn't, he was honest with his emotions and questions, but he never stopped seeking God. There is a good answer to the question Job posed, one that will satisfy both our heart and our mind. It will be found, however, only by those who are willing to work through the pain and unfairness of life and still seek God. Those who seek him will find him. In God's loving arms, they will find the answers they seek. And by this, I've learned through Job suffered a lot. But the one main thing is that he consistently seeked God. And through all that, he did do a form of step number 2, which is coming to believe that a power greater than himself could restore him to sanity. That gives us hope as addicts, as people with life-controlling obstacles. Did he, after a tremendous amount of suffering, losing his children, becoming ill, did he actually receive much more times 2? He was granted everything back. So if we just get out of that insane thinking, which insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, can we be restored when we believe that God or a higher power can restore us? Because obviously we've been insane thinking that we ourselves could.
Good.
That's what I
Good.
got out of that.
So, what was Job's process?
Going through a lot of trials. And then in
How does
this,
that relate to what we have here today?
so you said something about perception.
Yeah.
Whenever this is wrote, he was basically calling out to God, how frail is humanity? How frail are we as humans? We were born of women, men and women. We blossom like flowers, but then we wither. So you can blossom in life, but then you're going to suddenly wither away whenever you yourself can hold yourself accountable. Because in our sickness and our diseases, do we become like dead? We wither away to nothing. But by doing so, God puts us through those trials because there's something good that can come out of it. And in verse 7, it says, even like a tree has more hope. So you have to die to become born again. And God can restore us. And that's where the insanity comes into place, because we try over and over and over again in our lives to do it ourselves. But for me, until I seek God, was he able to restore me to sanity and give me that peace through all those sufferings, trials, and tribulations in life. Because we're all going to have them. But instead of why this, why that, he is good, he is fair, he is just, and he'll give you back everything you deserve.
And probably even more.
And even more. Because he's one who gives, he's one who loves. And so, like I said, even why is this happening? Why is this happening? It's not because you're bad, because you deserve it, because we all deserve certain things. But what is he trying to teach us through all that?
Yeah.
And until I realized and recognized deep within myself that I was worthy of it, have I realized maybe it's not why me, but what else is there to see?
Good. Good. Unworthy of what?
Unworthy of despair, unworthy of good, justice,
His love.
sanity.
Okay. All right.
It's a big one.
So you're worthy of.
We are.
Okay. We are.
Everybody is.
And what about you?
Me, I am worthy of it. Even through my
Congratulations.
I had to get sick and tired of feeling unworthy in order for me to open my eyes and realize we're all born sinners,
Yeah.
but we are worthy of it,
Yes.
even as sinners.
Yes.
And whenever you open your eyes and come to believe that you can be restored, it is so much more.
So what makes us worthy? That's not in our material, but I thought I'd just throw that out since you're talking about it.
What makes you worthy? The acceptance of it.
Acceptance of what?
Acceptance of God's love.
Okay.
Your own self-love. Freedom from your addiction, from life-controlling habits.
We're talking about righteousness, right?
Yes.
And the way that I learned it many years ago is righteousness is right standing with God. And what makes us in right standing with God?
By doing what he says. By
No,
seeking
no.
him? No.
Well, seeking him is getting closer.
Seeking
It's
him?
more of receiving his grace, his love, his mercy.
You talking about salvation?
So, all of it, salvation, you know, what brings it, because we're not in right standing with God based on our doings,
Right.
right? Ephesians says that it's faith, grace through faith. It's a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. And so, to be in right standing means, again, that perception that you mentioned a while ago is seeing that He is willing to give us His righteousness if we're willing to receive it. What do you think about that?
It's true. In step 2, it gives you more of that understanding, and it's more of hope. Hope that you can become righteous with him.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Tom has one.
I was just a comment, I myself, I don't feel I am worthy except because of the blood of Christ. That's what makes me worthy. I of myself am not worthy. And that's why I have to depend on.
And I absolutely agree, because there's no, if we could do it on our own, then we wouldn't need the blood of Christ. But the thing of it is, we can't do it on our own. And that's exactly what step 2 is talking about right here. It is, read step 2 again.
We became to believe that a power greater
What
than
was-
ourselves
What was that?
came to believe
A,
power
there you go.
greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
There you go. And so, this coming to believe is that process of receive. Right? We have another question back in the back for you. Did you see that hand back here? I couldn't hear you.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question.
Oh, you done?
No, sir.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You faked me out there.
Sorry. I'm gonna go ahead.
The old literature used to say the power. They only changed it because they didn't want to do the spiritual stuff in it, because they said it would chase people away. But in the old steps, it would say, I came to believe that the power.
Okay, thank you.
You know, in my lifetime and stuff, I mean, this is just kind of a comment that, of course, I didn't have to go through, you know, what Joe did. But I'm not trying to compare myself to that, but he had to put me completely down, just like he told Satan. He said, you can do anything to him but kill him. You know, and I honestly believe that that's what happened to me. I mean, I was trying to kill myself. I didn't want to be awake anymore. I was absolutely trying to drink myself to death. I was tired. I was tired of living on this earth. I was tired of everything that was in it. And one day, boy, there it came. And it was do or die. And by the grace of God, I chose to live.
That's great.
And still motivated to that point that I want to live, and I want to live for God. Because God is the one that has given me all of this stuff back. And all these 5 years I have pretty, not real close, but going for 5 years.
All right.
And he has given me life every day, you know. And I thank him for every day that he gives me. I don't know how much longer I have on this earth or anything, and to be honest with you, I'm not for sure that I care. I'd like to be around as long as I can, but whenever he calls, I want to be ready to go with him too, you know. So I have to watch what I do every day. I have to read my Bible. I have to talk to him, you know, and that's what Job did. You know, even in his most pitiful state, he still trusted God.
Yes.
God was not going to put anything on him that he couldn't bear. And I'd say that poor little boy went through a bad spot. More than I would want to, I'm sure.
Willie.
But anyway,
Thank you, Courtney. You want to say something, Tom?
Yeah, I think, in order to really follow step 2, we have to, of course, step 1, obvious. But Paul said in Romans that The things that he would do, he didn't do. The things he wanted to do or didn't want to do, those he did. And I think we have to go with, like Job wrestling with God or stuff like that, and giving God his control. And then that's where we see that giving ourselves up. Matthew 6:33, seek him first and he will give us all these things. These things are not things. These things are wisdom of his word, love for others and stuff like that.
It's good. Okay, Willie. He's gonna reflect upon us.
Yeah. When I first read it, the scripture, just them four, you just read
Speak
them.
right into the mic, Willie.
It's gone. The mic's gone. There, how about that? Is that better?
What? That is better.
How about that? Now the mic's gone. Hold on a minute. How about there? Is that good? Right there. That good? Okay. We got this now. All right. When I first read Job 14, 1-6, first, if you just read that part, you think he is griping. Think he's angry and all that, which if I went through most of the stuff he did, I would be probably angry too, but he wasn't. He was just explaining, he understood what he was doing. You lose your whole family, you lose all your livestock. We're not talking one or two, we're talking hundreds. But yet he still went after to find God all through it. Even when he got sick himself, he's still seeking to find God. And that if it could just touch me that through all that trouble, and here we are struggling, if we can make it 2 hours without having something, Most people only time they want to seek God is when they're, basically, let's just say they're in jail. What's the first thing you do? You ask God to get you out. You get out, and then where do you go? You either go to the liquor store, you go to get your the drug house, whatever. But you do not think, hey, thank God you got me out. And I'm one of these that here recently I've been doing it more. I've been trying a lot harder, but I wish I could do it more than what I do because I forget too. And then, like I said, Job made it through. He got everything he had back and then some. And he just, question 1. How has life seemed unfair to me in the areas of my family? Well, recently my boy got taken away for something that he didn't do. I had to struggle through that, So I'd have to say it'd be that way right there. Trauma, abuse, I was mad at the world because of it. Still mad at certain things about it, but, I'm getting better at it. Addiction. This time last year, I walked up to Doug and told him, man, I'm giving it all away. I'm walking away from it all. I was ready. I was that far down because of this situation with my boy. And, Doug talked me in, we talked it over, and I stayed with it. Now, here I am today up in front of the mic, actually telling you all the story. I ain't gonna tell you what it was over, but that was it. But through all that, I did not go back to my addiction part. And that's the one thing I can be thankful for right now. Question 2. What are my objections to trust in God fully with my addiction in my life? I just don't want to feel useless. That's the way you feel when you turn it over to him. But if you can get over that, you're gonna get the benefits in the long run. It's gonna be better than your addiction ever was. What emotions and questions do I need to be honest with God about? Emotion, be fear. Be fear. On that one. Am I willing to work through the pain and unfairness of my life in order to find God and be free from my addiction? What holds me back? I'd have to say it was fear. And I just got that found out recently. And it's time to work on that. We'll see how that does. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I'm really glad you're here.
Do what?
I'm really glad you're here.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Hey, thanks for the, Courtney for the step, and Heather for the reading, and Willie for the reflection, and for all the comments out there. And so, I just want to touch on some of the information that we had right here. But before I do, is there anybody else has anything to say about the information that we've covered so far? Okay, I'll give you another chance in here a little bit. The going through the facts are, as far as life, we all have difficulty, right? Everyone has difficulty. Everybody has difficult situations. Everybody has hard stuff. Now, I was talking with a person the other day, and they commented that they had a belief that they shouldn't be having any difficulties in their life. I'm serious.
I'm sorry.
You want to say something, Don?
Was that, is it scripture or is it not? It says that it will rain on the just and the unjust.
That's correct.
That is scripture.
It is.
I was thinking about that the other day, thinking about that kind of topic, and I was walking along and I started to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah.
I thought, hey, it's not just raining on poor old me, it's raining on. everybody.
Well, but Jesus said, in the world there are many trials and tribulations, but he'd overcome them all.
Yeah.
And he wanted to give us that hope and peace to help us in that. So the point here is, and I know I may be coming at it kind of hard, but I was trying to make a point, is because bad stuff happens. But Job's friends that came to visit him basically was trying to communicate to Job their theology, and they said it was also Job's theology, was that if bad stuff's happened to you, it's because you've sinned, you've messed up. Okay, that was their idea, and they continually they came to cheer him up, and they sat with him for a good long while without saying anything, which was very helpful, and they did a lot of good before they started talking. And a lot of, but see, they came with good intentions, right? Most people that are interested in helping other people, they're there with good intentions, but I'm not even sure how to exactly say it tactfully, but I think you already know what I'm going to say. people usually come off of a script of judgment. Do you understand what I'm saying? A script of judgment. And that's what they were doing with Job. Now, I want you to understand, Job didn't know everything that we know. He didn't understand grace as Jesus taught it. And hopefully that we understand it. Okay? But he was convinced, like Robert said earlier, he was convinced that he didn't do anything to cause that. In fact, if you go to I think it's the first few verses of the book, he offered sacrifices for his children, and in case they may have done something wrong. Okay, all right, trying to maintain that relationship, and by the way, that's faith, is it not? And the scripture says it's impossible to please him without faith. So, but it's hard when the biological material hits the fan, right? And life turns upside down because there's a part of us. Maybe I ought to put this in a question form. If we know the reason why things are going on, we believe, do we believe that if we know the reason why things are going on, that will make it easier? Do we believe that? Is that a rational belief?
No.
I don't think so either.
Okay. Because it is not a rational belief. Now, it may seem rational to you, because we think that if I know what's going on, I can get my mind wrapped around it, because that's what we say, then that will make things better. But if it's, sometimes knowing doesn't make it better, okay? Because sometimes you can't even know it. I've been with families that lost babies, and always the question is why, right? On all the hard stuff. And there is no answer to that. But they think that if they had an answer, it'd make them feel better. And somewhere along the line, I will say, even if you had an answer, which I don't know that there is one at this point, that's not going to take away what you're feeling right now. Right? And I try to do it as gently as possible. Because we don't want to accept the reality of that. And there's a part of us, I'm thinking, we feel that maybe I've done something, okay? But he was absolutely convinced that he didn't do anything. And they gave him speech after speech. And finally he told them that he knew that he hadn't done it. And somehow he communicated enough to him that they got it. And they decided they needed to be quiet. But then that's when the younger person started speaking. And he said a lot of very similar things, but he didn't do it in an accusatory way. Because he was talking about God. And he was talking about how things are. And I want to say this. I'll say this and then I'll give you a story. Sometimes when people are trying to help you and they do it the wrong way, it also can be helpful to you if you're in a position to be able to receive it. What in the world does that mean? That's the reason why I'm going to tell you the story. 20 years ago my dad died, and I had plans for my dad. He died, he was 62 years old. He was not supposed to die that early. Nobody's supposed to die whenever they die. They're just not supposed to be that way. And I had a person that really, here at the church, that really loved me, I believe. And they were trying to console me. And they were trying to say nice things like, well, he's in heaven and everything's good. That makes everything better. Well, it wasn't making it better to me. I'm glad he was in heaven, but I did not want that. Okay. And I couldn't, I couldn't connect with her platitudes. You follow me? Does that make sense? And so I'm not for sure exactly what I said, but I realized it wasn't probably as kind as it should have been. You know what I mean? But I think her asking that question and that coming out of me helped me to see what state that I was in. Does that make sense? So she actually helped me, okay? Even though it caused more emotional pain, but it helped me to reflect on what's going on. And I think that's what Job's friends did. They picked on him and battered him, and he stayed strong that he knew that he hadn't done anything wrong. And even though he asked the questions and he was angry about it. See, when you're in grief, you're in another altered state. We talked about dysregulation a while ago. When you're in grief, you're in an altered state. You're dysregulated emotionally. You know what I'm talking about. And you're upset, you're angry, you're mad, you're unhappy with what's going on. And Job just lost 7 kids, which I think was the biggest trauma. Of course, he lost all of his wealth. He lost all the respect of the entire community because everybody was, they all condemned him because they knew that he'd been a phony, evidently. You follow me? So he lost everything: respect, money, family. And of course, his wife.
She told him to curse God.
Yeah.
She even told him to curse God, didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't she?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. She curse God and die.
Yes, sorry. Not just curse him, but.
Just go on to hell anyway, Okay, and hey, well, thank you for that help. And so, so the rest of the story is, after listening to that young man, and then God had never said anything. Of course, there wasn't anything recorded in the Bible, but see, he was processing. Okay, I think his brain started working for him, and he started focusing on that, but he still had some questions, right? Even though you're getting better, that doesn't mean you're all good, right? Right? Because it's a process. Yeah, we hate process, but the fact, because we like it to all be switch on, switch off. All right, we want the switch to do all the work, and we don't do all the mental, emotional, spiritual processing. And it's hard. It's hard, but it's healthy. It's healthy. It's hard, but it's healthy. Think about it in your guys' life. Willie's talking about some of the stuff he went through, and directly and indirectly, he communicated that he was thankful that he didn't go backwards in his relationship. Would you agree with that? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's safe. And on this lady that spoke to me, I don't know what, I didn't say much, but I'm glad I didn't say more. Okay, because I felt more, right? And again, you know, but Job stayed with it. This is what we're talking about, persistent seeking. And the idea is, if you get the answer, is that gonna clear everything up? Is that gonna fix how you feel? Okay, is that gonna change your circumstances? What we want to do is we want to be able to move forward. I remember after my dad dying took over a year, I had this pain in my chest. You know, and I pray, God, how long? How long is this going to stay there? And there was a part of me that wanted to get it out, but there was another part of me that didn't want to let it go. That's some of the internal fight that we have. So, Job then let God talk to him. And he said, I got some questions for you. You've had questions for me. Now I've got some questions for you. And if you can answer it, then you can be God. Basically, is kind of what he said. And so God went through his questions. And Job had a really great response. I'm going to shut my mouth. I'm going to put my hand over my mouth. You're God. And that is really hard. That's hard for us because we want to control it, right? There you go. We want to control it. We want to fix it. We want to do it. But what? Do what?
Nothing.
Okay.
I'm giving it to
Step 2, but when we came to believe that a power. And the information that Courtney gave earlier about, is it fair that we have to give an accounting for stuff that's happened in our life, or the dysfunctional family we're in, or this dysfunctional world we're in, or whatever thing we want to blame? Why is it that I have to give account for my behavior because it's not my fault, it's all that's fault, right? How's that worked out for you?
You just said what I just said.
Well, I didn't hear you, so it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, because we can't do it on our own, we can only do it by coming to him. As Apostle Paul said, learning to totally rely on him.
Amen.
And now he was smart, he was intelligent, he was powerful, he was persuasive. But he ran out, we talked about it a few weeks ago, he ran that all the way out till the place that it wasn't working for him anymore, and he thought he was going to die. He was overwhelmed. He was convinced. See, he had the same problem that Job had. You see how they're similar?
Right.
And he said, all this happened to help me to learn to totally rely on God. That's Paul. Can I throw another little story in there? I hadn't really planned on doing those, but that's where we're at right now. I may not do the rest of this on my paperwork. And that is Jesus. See, now, people, some of you, if not all of you, hold on to your seats, sometimes try to live certain rules or regulations or laws or precepts or whatever it is. You try to live them, maintain them, keep them. You try to do stuff that Jesus didn't even do. You try to be better than Jesus. How's that working for you? Oh, you don't believe it. You don't believe me so far. I understand. But see, if you lied to your parents about being on a trip and you were supposed to be with your cousins, but actually you were teaching in the synagogue and it took them 3 days to get back to you. If you did that, that would be more than a problem, right? Right? But if Jesus did it, it's okay because it was Jesus. So he made an error in judgment there, wouldn't you agree? But is an error of judgment a sin? Now, some people says it is. I say it's not.
I wouldn't say it was a sin.
That's right. That's what I said. We agreed on that. But sometimes when we make an error in judgment or a sick choice or a bad choice or make a mistake, we call it a sin. And then, so you're trying to live up to something that Jesus didn't live up to. What do you think about that? Then we beat our, and that's putting it mildly, right?
Yeah. Aren't we supposed to learn by our mistakes?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean,
Well, did Jesus learn by his mistakes?
I'd say so. If he made any.
Maybe it was to show his parents codependence.
Maybe. Well, Hebrews says that though he were a son, he learned obedience by the things he suffered. So number one, he had to learn stuff, and he learned it through suffering. So how do you learn through suffering? That means you do some things, and this may have been one of those things, right? And there could have been many more. And one here is where I was working up to was the Garden of Gethsemane. See, because if you knew that you were supposed to do something and you decided you didn't want to do it and you tried to make a deal with God, you'd call that, do what?
In trouble.
In trouble. If you're unwilling to do what God wants you to do, you'd call that sin, wouldn't you?
Sin.
Wouldn't you? But negotiating, he wasn't negotiating, but if you did it, what would you call it?
He was
Right.
bargaining with
And then he yelled at his disciples.
Yeah.
Okay, because he was in a tough fight. I know this may be a little too much for some of you out there in the internet land. Sometimes the truth is challenging, but the truth is the truth. Okay, but Jesus said, "If it be thy will, let this cup pass from me." I know it's the plan, but let's go to plan B.
There you go.
And see, that word processing we talked about a while ago, Jesus had to process. He learned obedience by the things he suffered, and he suffered that night to help him to line up with the Father's will. Not thy will, not my will be done, but thy will be done. But if we went through that, we'd be way harder on ourselves than we were on Jesus. That's the reason why I said sometimes we try to live up to things that Jesus didn't even live up to. Now, I didn't say those were sins. I said they were errors. He learned obedience by the things he suffered. So, in a sense, he had situations in the garden. And before that, when he was in the wilderness, when he was tempted by the enemy, he had all these things. And we are tempted in, he was tempted in every way that we're tempted. And so we have those temptations. We have those issues. And the power that Job used, Paul used, Jesus used, was that power of God connecting to it. The trouble is, it's hard for us because we want to be in control of it. Am I telling the truth, Miracle?
Control freak.
Yeah, I get it. But you know what? God is so patient. He is so loving. He knows the way we are, and he's given you your controlled issues, which are to be a benefit in your life, and not just the pain in whatever part of your body you feel the pain in. But he wants to help you just as Paul, his gifting was intelligence and being able to communicate to people. But if you're relying on your gifts and you're not relying on God's power. And so what we're doing is trying to do that. And that's what step 2 is talking about here. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. Oh, yeah. Intellectually, we get that. Sometimes down in here, we have a hard time with that. And that's okay. The first step is becoming aware, right? Hello? Becoming aware.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the story of Job. He had to go through this process, but he was in deep grief. And went through the process. And when you're in grief, the five levels of grief, the first one is denial. Okay. It's not, this is not real. This is not the way it's supposed to be. It's not happened. So I'm going to pretend it didn't happen. The next one, if I remember correctly, the next one is going to the place of you start to shift a little bit, and then you get depressed because it starts to sink in. That's really real. I really did that stupid stuff. That's not who I am, but that's what I did. I know I'm better than that, even though I didn't act like it. You know what I'm talking about? Hello? You know what I'm talking about? Does anybody hear me? That's what I did. But that's not really who I am. Because way down inside, because remember what we said in step 2 said that that a power greater than ourselves could restore us. That means we know that it's there, but we use psychological terms. We got dysregulated and pushed out of it, or overwhelmed, or mad, or upset, whatever. But it's there inside. It's in every one of us, including you guys out on the internet. Whether you know it or not, whether you even believe it or not. You don't have to believe it. Doesn't change the fact of it. So here we are. Here we are. And then God did a really neat thing with Job. He told his friends to offer sacrifice and then get Job to pray for you. And I think the purpose of all that was actually to restore all of them. Just my thoughts. And it did restore Job. And I'm sure it restored his friends. So, that was my little review. Well, thank you. So, only got a couple minutes left. What you want to say something?
I was gonna say what you said, he restored Job and his friends too, and, it's like you said in the past, once our life changed, we affect everybody around.
Absolutely.
So, you're being restored, you're restoring the people around you, having a better positive effect on their lives than you were before.
And you probably don't realize it, but You have always affected everybody around you. But it depends on which direction you affected them. I remember a young man that had a camp, and this is a long time ago. It was Teton Camp, I think. He ran across our camp, and it was a boy and girl camp. And I was the director, and that's back when streaking was a big deal. He streaked across the camp, so they brought him to me. And I said, almost said his name. I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm not gonna say his last name, but John, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're a leader. You're leading people. Is that the direction you want to lead them? And he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, no. And when he was going to college at Springfield many years ago, he called me, wanted to have lunch. He said, that conversation came down here in Joplin. We had lunch. He said, that conversation changed his life, the direction of his life. Because he's a smart kid, talented. But, Go ahead.
When you said that, it just made me think, sometimes there's just maybe one person in your life that can change your whole trajectory of the way you're going. Because I know it's happened in my life, and so, I think God places these people, in our lives.
I believe that.
To help us make these turns
And he uses all of us.
Oh, yes.
And he doesn't use you a year from now. He'll use you right now, wherever you're at. He will.
Even if you're in a mess?
Yes, he will.
You never know.
He specializes-
Especially if you're in a mess. What'd you say, Tom?
He specializes in medicine.
He does. If he can use a jackass, he probably can use you too.
Doug, 2 years ago, this last December, my son passed away. He was 42.
Sorry to hear that.
And 10 months later, my brother was killed on a motorcycle. He was 65. Man, you talk about huge.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't sure how much more my heart could take.
Sure.
And it just come to me, and that's the only thing that actually saved me through all that. As I didn't drink or go get high or anything over it, but I was down bad.
Sure.
And I thought of it one day, I know God was the one that put the thought or spoke to me, where you don't call it, but he's the one that did it, and there was a reason for that. And I have to trust and believe in that one day, if possible, that I will have knowledge of why that happened. He says that there's nothing on God's earth that happens by mistake, and I believe that now. Before I didn't, because everything was happy-go-lucky, I was doing great, But boy, I'll tell you what, when my son passed away, that almost killed me. And it still hurts real bad.
That'd be tough.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No,
That was
it's-
my children. I wouldn't do it. I don't think that it's fair. Mind you, this is just me talking, that it's fair for a child to go before their parents. But it happens every day.
It's not fair,
No,
but it happens.
but it does happen. And there's a reason behind that, and that's the way I live my life now, that one day maybe I'll find out why. God will let me know. He needed it more than I did.
Well, I'm not smart enough to give an answer.
No, there is no answer to that.
I'm gonna play a Job.
Yeah, there is. no
Shut my mouth. So, of course, we'd all like an answer, but the answer is not gonna fix it, But the only thing that will help is just taking another step and getting better. And he wants to help us in that. I want to help, you know. And, you know, we can't heal alone, even though we've always tried, right? Yeah. That's some of our insanity talking, right? So, well, let's see. I was going to read a quote out of my information that I had here. And well, I don't know if this is, I have another one in here that I can't seem to find it right at the moment, but I got this one right on top. And this is from Zig Ziglar. Anybody familiar with Zig Ziglar? I like Zig Ziglar. He said, and this is out of the information that I was going to share that I'm not going to share. So I may read the topics, but anyway, he said this. He said, it's not how far you fall, but how high you bounce that counts.
Is that what the ticker?
It sounds like a Tigger move, doesn't it? Yeah. And so, okay, let's see. Okay, all right. Well, maybe I'll come across that other quote here in a little bit, but, you know, failure happens. Things go wrong. You know, we experience situations. We either make mistakes or we are caught up in things that hang on to us. Here are 8 principles or practices that can help us cope with these things. And I'm just going to list them. I'm going to try not to talk about them. How about that? Number 1 is face the truth of the situation. Important. Face the truth. Remember we talked about denial? Oh, I didn't even get through all the cycle, did I? We have the denial. We have the denial. We have the then we have the anger. Yeah, we have depression, right? And then we have the anger. Anger is there to help us, to push us through resolving the anger, because we finally and you can see that in Job. That's what was going on there. That anger was actually helping him to process. Now we think God gets mad at us if we're mad, and I say no. He's happy if you get mad at him, because at least then you're paying attention to him. All right. So then we go into that anger, and then that anger, and we're processing that, and finally then we come to acceptance. It is the way that it is. And then we resolve it. Now, it doesn't all happen always in that sequence. Sometimes we jump back around, but we should not get mad at Job for being angry or sad or upset or hurt. Okay, because he's only human, and that's part of the cycle of healing. Now, yes, you can go too far. Okay, it can spin you out. It can push you over the ledge. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, so anyway, my mind tripped onto that whenever I hit that. So number 2, allow yourself to mourn loss. Whatever loss, even if it's the loss of a dream, because we have dreams. Sometimes that loss of a dream is harder than anything. Not anything, but it's hard sometimes. 3, don't get stuck feeling like you are a victim. We're in a society that has a lot of victim mentality right now. And that will make you be stuck. Would you agree with that? Number 4, check if your expectations are realistic. Realistic. Yeah, too high. They need to be realistic. Check it, okay? See, we think with different parts of our mind. Yes, they are connected, but we can ask ourselves a question. I like Dr. Carolyn Leaf talks about neural processing, and she says, ask, answer, and discuss. And you're doing that all in your head. Was talking to yourself, but ask, answer, and discuss. And you can do that, and you do that with different parts of your brain. And you can get some amazing answers if you process it. Because the fact of it is, we hide stuff from ourselves all the time. I said I wasn't going to talk about it. Yeah, all right. Number 5, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be your best friend, not your worst enemy, right? Treat yourself like somebody that you're paid to take care of. How about that? Okay. Number 6, that's a Jordan Peterson thing. So, number 6, look for the silver lining. You know, people, they come to me and they've messed up, or they've used, or they've gone out, and I said, well, what'd you learn? That I'm just looking for the silver lining. What did you learn out of it? I'm not going to beat you up for what you did, but I want to help yourself learn, because if we don't learn from our experiences, that's it. You've heard this before, haven't you? Just, number 7, be willing to try a different approach. Okay, a different approach. Try a different approach. Sometimes I've had people tell me, it can't be done. I said, no, let's think about it. Let's think about it creatively. Let's look at it from a different angle. Let's brainstorm here a different approach. Because there's answers for just about everything. Right? Number 8, find your grit. Find your grit. Okay, what is grit? Grit is, this is from Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, and that is having goals and passions and the consciousness to continue to pursue over long periods of time, that you're persistent. And this is the persistent seeking that we're talking about. And, excuse me? Determination, yes. And she says that this grit statement is more predictable of success than talent or intelligence. The persistence, determination, the passion, staying plugged in, again, persistent seeking. Job was persistent. Okay, he didn't give up even though it was way too hard. And everybody was telling him he was wrong. He stayed in there. You can't win if you quit.
He held on to his stones.
He did. So don't quit. Don't sabotage yourself. That's the biggest thing we do to ourselves. We sabotage ourselves. We say, it's too hard. I'll just go get high. I'll just go drink. I'll just go gamble. Or I'll just go have sex with whomever. I'll just go and do whatever it is that's your coping mechanism that will make you feel temporarily okay for a few seconds. And then it's worse after that. But you already know that. But your brain is going to hide that information from you. So, anyway.
I'm going to get too much information, you can't get it all out.
Yeah, that's all right. We're done. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace.
Make healthy choices.
Make healthy choices, and if you don't know Jesus, all you have to do is say, Jesus, forgive me. I receive you as my Savior right now in Jesus' name. And he'll come in. And he'll make a difference. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Make healthy choices. See you next week. Robert's going to do the step.
Yeah.
Scared me.